Welcome to Graduate First Fundamentals. Implementing Graduate First is the focus of this session. Please take just a moment to read the disclaimer from the U.S. Department of Education. The learning target for this session is I can describe and explain the purpose and components of the Graduate First process. Before this session is over, I hope that you will be able to understand what Graduate First is about and then how to at least begin to implement the Graduate First process. This model is a slide that you have already seen, but this is just a reminder that the basis for Graduate First is the attendance, behavior, and academic performance, but also those wraparound services that we can do for students in helping them belong and build relationships in school, and also considering the family engagement and community engagement. So the role of the team leader, each school will need to designate a team leader. This will be the contact person for the collaboration coach that has been assigned to your school. And some of the things that are on the list for the team leaders to do include to facilitate the implementation of schools' activity strategies and interventions. And I want to point out the word facilitate because the team leader is there to facilitate this process. They do not have to do everything by themselves. In fact, it is recommended that the team of people that are put together work on this process and these things together. So the team leader, again, is just a facilitator. There will be some things that are required for the team leader to participate in. There will be meetings that they will be attending as well on a regular basis, kind of regionally. And so those are some things that the team leader will need to be able to complete. Again, I want to point out the verb here, support the school team. The school team we'll talk more about in a minute. That's that group of people that will be put together to implement this Graduate First process. But supporting the school team in helping them analyze data, supporting the school team in implementing the short-term action plan, that's what STAP stands for. And then ensuring that any kind of data that is required for the project through SPDIG is collected and reported to the collaboration coach in a timely manner. And you can see in bold red at the bottom of this is a quote from the Graduate First Implementation Manual. The team leader is the project representative at the school level that coaches the school team members and other personnel at the school level through the successful implementation of Graduate First project in order to build sustainability at the school level. So they have a big role, but it's not just about the team leader. For more information about the team leader roles and responsibilities, in your Graduate First Team Leader or Implementation Manual, on page 16, there's more information that you can see, a little bit more detailed information about each of the things that we talked about on the previous slide. I mentioned the school team in conjunction with the team leader. The school team will need to be determined by the team leader and any other appropriate administrators. So members of that team can include an administrator, special education teachers, general education teachers, district personnel, a graduation coach, a counselor. These are just suggestions, but it is recommended that the people that are on the team have a vested interest in the students that are on the target list. When the team meets, one of the first things that they'll need to do is determine meeting dates, and those dates need to be shared with their collaboration coach, as I know some coaches will be trying to attend as many school team meetings as possible. The members of the school team need to plan to attend all of the team meetings. They need to commit to monitoring and supporting each target student, and we'll talk about that target student list in just a moment. And then somebody from this team, this school team, needs to report to the leadership team on a monthly basis so that the entire staff can be aware of what is happening with the process of Graduate First. More information about the school team, who should be on that, responsibilities and activities of the school team can be found on page 14 in the Graduate First Implementation Manual. Another thing that should be done during team meetings is somebody on that team should be assigned to monitor the agenda of the meeting as well as to take minutes. Now, we have provided a sample of what we use for team meeting agenda and minutes. It is on page 21 of your Graduate First Implementation Manual. It's a good format, but it is not required. It does help you kind of know what your next steps will be and helps kind of help you build your agenda for your next meeting each time you meet. But again, it is not required. So in the school team meetings, one of the first things that needs to be done is for the school to analyze the data. And the data being any school data that the school has, it's pertinent to what issues need to be addressed, CCRPI data, any data that has to do with any kind of instructional data. You may have something from walkthroughs or just some anecdotal data that you as a team can discuss. And then the other data that will need to be looked at is what we will call target list data for our students that we will be monitoring throughout the year. This is where you will prioritize your students and determine how many students you're going to have on your list to, as I said, monitor. Once you kind of collected all of your data and kind of looked through it, you really need to do with your team a root cause analysis to kind of prioritize your issues. And we'll talk more about this in a bit, but these issues then will be outlined in a plan that will help you know what activities and interventions to put in place to support your students and your school. One of the other things that will happen during that data analysis is what is called the data probe. It begins on page 32 in the Graduate First Implementation Manual. There's a description of what the data probe is. This is a screenshot of what the actual data will look like in an Excel spreadsheet. It is required, and your collaboration coach will help you in determining when this information will be filled out. But for this year, of course, the only data that we will need to fill out is the very first section, which is 2012-2013. And this would be a good starter for looking at your school data and your CCRPI data and determining what school level issues you may have. For your target list of students, which will will come from that prioritized list of students that you've determined. We'll need to look at what risk factors may be there for students. And I won't read them all to you. You can see them having to do with discipline, retention, attendance, and so forth. But also keep in mind that you don't need to forget things like, are these students involved in any kind of extracurricular activities? That's something that we tend to find that students that are at risk typically are not involved in anything other than just coming to school. Another way that we determine risk factors is taking time to interview students. That's been very powerful information, and it has helped us to determine students that need to be on the list, as well as how to support those students. So here's a sample data sheet that you may want to consider using. This is in an Excel sheet. It just gives the name of the student, and then some of the things that this school wanted to look at to determine the risk factors for the students so that they could prioritize and put the students on their list. You certainly can't. Your lists don't need to be too long, and so this kind of helps you narrow that down if need be. So once we get the data analyzed and for the school, and then our targeted list created, then we'll need to look at what do we need to do in order to address the issues that we have determined. So this pyramid is a good way to think about what are the ways that we will address these issues. At the bottom you see universal strategies. Sometimes the things that we've looked at in our school data tell us, and the root cause analysis tell us that it is important for us to put something in place that is school-wide. We may have an attendance issue school-wide, so we need to put in place something that addresses attendance for our school. Or we may have a math issue that is a school-wide issue that we need to put some sort of interventions in place or some sort of math program in place to address a school-wide issue with math. That would be at the bottom tier of this pyramid, because it covers the entire school, so it's a universal strategy. Up above it, you see targeted strategies. This is where you target your list of students that you've created and prioritized, that you're going to monitor throughout the year. You see that that's around 15% of your school, and it may or may not be that, but it's going to be around that. So what you're going to do here are things that address specifically just this group of students. For example, many schools put in place some sort of mentoring just for this targeted list of students. So everybody on that list has a mentor that's in the school that checks in with them on a regular basis, and they put in place some social skills, activities, and things that can be done. So anything that's here is strictly focused on this target list of students. In the third tier up there, you can see that's a smaller percentage, and that includes any kind of intensive strategies that need to be done for individual students. You're going to have some students on your target list that need some really supportive services, wraparound services, and very intensive interventions to be able to keep that student from dropping out, or supporting that student in behavior, or whatever that might be. But you're going to have a small percentage of students that need those really intensive services. So that sets up the stage for what we're going to talk about next, which is your short-term action plan. So this is the action plan that your school team is going to put together to be able to determine what activities, strategies, interventions are going to be put in place to address those issues that you determined in your root cause analysis. So you'll have a SMART goal, and it may be from your school improvement plan, but you'll have a SMART goal that needs to be addressed, and so you as a school team will determine what are some things you can put in place that are going to address those issues. And so the main thing is that that short-term action plan is a living document, that it is something that you're looking at every school team meeting, and that you're looking to see if anything needs to be added, if things are moving forward, or if, and so basically you need to make sure that it is being monitored on a regular basis. So here's a sample. The information in your Graduate First Implementation Manual on short-term action plans begins on page 47, or I should say this template is on page 47. There's more information in the manual about creating your short-term action plan. This is just a sample. Again, we tried to give you some tools that you can use without having to recreate anything. Many of our schools use what they are required to use for their school improvement plans in the short-term action plan. Really, the main thing is that we need for you to include what engagement area or areas your short-term action plan will be addressing. So you can see at the top here, is it academic, affective, cognitive, behavioral, or attendance? And in the overview, I know that you all discussed these in more depth, so you should be able to, your collaboration coach should be able to help you determine which engagement areas you're addressing on your plan. So here's a really good sample of what a short-term action plan will include. You see a well-written SMART goal, and then what is it you're wanting to target? So you're to decrease absences, in this case, of students by 50% for the first quarter. So it's very specific about what you're going to do, and then what task are you going to try? And to me, one of the most important things is, what is it going to look like if we're successful? So that 80% of all targeted students will have 50% fewer absences for the first quarter. And then it gives us a time frame and then the resources that are needed to complete that. So this one's very simple, but it includes, like I said, a well-written SMART goal, as well as that target and the success criteria. And we need to be looking at this on a regular basis to see where we are, if we're meeting that success criteria or not. Some of the ideas that we've seen schools use in the past that are evidence-based practices that would be things that you could include on your short-term action plan are listed here. I won't read them to you, but I do want to mention mentoring. I believe that's probably one of the most powerful things we do for our students, is put something in place so they have somebody to connect with on a regular basis, and they feel that sense of belonging, that somebody cares about them at school. And you can read some of the other options that some schools have used in the past. So in the school team meetings, this is team leader led, but it's not, the team leader's not having to do everything. They just are to lead the meetings. And some of the first things that need to be accomplished in the school team meetings, the collaboration coach will provide the team leaders with two rubrics, one about the Graduate First process, and then one about the Graduate First engagement areas. And those two rubrics need to be completed as a pre and as a post. I believe some collaboration coaches are going to be also looking at both of those rubrics at kind of a midterm throughout the year, just to monitor progress and see where we are. Some other things that are kind of must-dos in the school team meetings are to create that short-term action plan, help implement it in whatever way needs to be done, help monitor it, and then evaluate the effectiveness. We talked about that success criteria. So how do we know what we're doing is effective? And if it's not, then what do we need to do differently? And that's the next step. So is there something that needs to be revised? So you'll be reviewing the short-term action plan at every single meeting and determining kind of where we are in next steps. And then the other really big thing for the school team is that each student that's on that target list is monitored on a regular basis. And I cannot emphasize the importance of this, that we're actually looking at every single child and talking about what's going on with that child, even if it's just for a second, to make sure that there's not something that we need to be doing to put some supports in place for that student, to have someone follow up with that student, to do whatever's necessary to make sure that these students are succeeding. So really kind of getting you started in your school team meetings, these are the things that need to be taken care of. On page 42 of your Graduate First implementation manual is something we call the assessment tool. This is a tool that can be used. It is not required, but it can be used to help you collect data on each of your target list of students. If you choose to use it, you see that it has everything that needs to be collected by the team leader to provide the collaboration coach that will then be turned in for this big project. If you choose not to use this tool, then you need to make sure that you include the components of this tool in whatever tool you're going to use. We do have schools sometimes use it, but modify it and add columns to it because they want to keep track of more than just attendance, discipline, and credits or course failures, and which we definitely encourage. But those are the three things that we have to have from the team leader. So here's a screenshot of what that looks like. As you can see over here, each student is listed, and then every 9 weeks data will be collected. Now on this tool, the way that we collect our data is by interval, and so for the first 9 weeks we want to know how many absences, ISS, OSS course failures, and total courses for that student. For the second 9 weeks we start over. We don't accumulate days absence down this column here. We start over with days absences in the second 9 weeks and so on. So every 9 weeks is a new interval. Something else that this tool will do is to chart either by the entire student list target